One of the questions I'm constantly asked in my weekly Sunday GCSE masterclasses, where I go over how to write model responses for language paper 1 and paper 2 every single Sunday, is will these year's exams be harder to pass? Is it going to be harder to pass this year's exam than last year? What are the grade boundaries? I'm trying to get a grade 5, I'm trying to get a 6, I'm trying to get a 7, 8 or 9. What do I need to get in terms of percentage? When we go cut down to the wire, what should I be working towards? So guys, what I want to do is to go over the grade boundaries for your language paper 1 and paper 2 exams. And by the way, guys, these boundaries don't tend to change massively year to year. So guys, what I'm using is the 2024 official grade boundaries. However, guys, these are usually a very faithful reflection of what the grade boundaries in the following year, which is the 2025 exams, will look like. So let's go over it. The language paper 1 and paper 2 grade boundaries, especially for those of you guys who are currently in year 11, class of 2025, and you're sitting your language paper 1 and paper 2 exams this summer. So for those of you guys who are aiming to get a 9, an 8, or even a 7 or a 6, this is what you need to be working towards. And especially when you review what you've been doing in terms of your marks, in terms of your preparation, maybe you're getting somebody to help you in terms of marking, or your teacher's been giving you feedback. These are the marks you should be aspiring to and what you should be working towards if you are aiming for 7s, 8s and 9s. Let's start with what a grade 9 response and what the marks are to hit grade 9. Now, contrary to what a lot of students tend to assume with the 9, oh, I need to get 100%. It needs to be a 99% answer. Actually, guys, last year's grade boundaries were 121 out of 160, which is 76% or more in terms of to get a 9, okay? Which is great, because that means to get the top tier marks, all you simply need to do is attain 76% across your language paper 1 and language paper 2. And of course, guys, for those of you that want to see what a grade 9 model response looks like for language paper 1 and paper 2, guys, this is precisely what we focus on answering and what I focus on answering every single Sunday at 5 to 6 p.m. in my weekly Sunday GCSE masterclasses. We're doing a past paper every single week, all the way to the language paper 1 and paper 2 exams. So of course, guys, if you're looking for model answers to revise from, which are written at a grade 9 level, simply join in and ask me as many questions as you want. And of course, you can use my model answers to revise from. What does a grade 8 look like? What should you be aiming to attain if you're working towards a grade 8? Now, last year's grade boundaries were 111 out of 160, which is 69%. So you need to attain 69% to get a grade 8. How about a grade 7, okay? Last year, you needed to have 102 out of 160, which is 63%. Why am I using grade boundaries from last year? Because of course, guys, grade boundaries are determined once exams are marked and once the average, the national average, is evened out, okay? So of course, the 2025 grade boundaries are not available. However, guys, if you look at past year's grade boundaries, 2024, 23, and so on, they don't tend to vary massively. So as I mentioned at the start, last year's grade boundaries are a very faithful reflection and an indicator of what your grade boundaries will be in the 2025 exams. Now, of course, guys, by the way, don't forget that for those of you that want to know how to do really well in your literature exams, because don't forget that your literature GCSE exams are first, before your language exams, I'm going to be running one-off GCSE literature masterclasses covering Macbeth, Inspector Calls, Christmas Carol, Power and Conflict, and Unseen Poetry from Bank Holiday 5th of May all the way to the 9th of May. So make sure you join in. What do you need to get a 6 in language paper 1 and paper 2? A grade 6 would need 92 out of 160 according to last year's grade boundaries, the 2024. In other words, 57%, which means basically 57% onwards is now where you're hitting the higher band marks, okay? Now, in terms of getting a 5, you need to get between 82 out of 160, which is 51% for a 5. And to get a 4, which is basically the lowest you can get without failing and having to do resits, for a 4, according to last year's grade boundaries, it was 73 out of 160. In other words, 45% per paper. Now, in terms of what does a fail look like, right? Now, beneath which level do you fall? And then you find yourself in the position where you're going to have to do resits come November time. This is what a grade 3 response was in terms of the marks allocated. That meant that students, of course, who got 3s had to resit. Students who got anything lower than and less than 54 out of 60, which is 33%, officially failed their exams last year. Okay, so of course you want to not hit 54 out of 160 or 33%. And of course a grade 2 was 35 out of 160, which is 22%, and grade 1, which is basically a fail, is 16 out of 160, and this is 1% of the overall marks. But of course, guys, what we are focusing on is making sure that you avoid these bottom 3 grades so that you can at least pass your English GCSEs. And of course, guys, for those of you who want a little bit more, you're kind of stressing about your literature paper 1 and paper 2 exams or your language paper 1 and paper 2 exams, don't forget, guys, there's always help, okay? So for those of you that want to get that last minute revision for literature paper 1 and paper 2, simply join in my masterclasses from 5 to 9th of May. We're going to be focusing on model answers for the different literature paper 1 and paper 2 exams. And of course, for those of you guys who want more direct support for language paper 1 and paper 2, simply join in my weekly Sunday GCSE masterclasses at 5 to 6 p.m. Thanks so much for listening.